like Mr. Rogers says in Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, you bang on the keys on the piano a few times and like, all right, you got to fix it. You got to work on it.
So as a lot of you have probably already heard, Pete Hines recently did an interview on Kinda Funny and their Friends series. Pete Hines is the SVP for Bethesda, which essentially means that he is one of the top brass at the publishing company. He handles basically everything when it comes to forward-facing stuff. Meaning he's in touch with the developers, and he's also in touch with us, the fans. He's the person that you see walk out on the E3 stage and represent the company. He's a big deal. And there are a lot of things that people are picking apart about this interview. A lot of these things you've probably already seen, but the main thing is that he talked a lot about Fallout 76, or maybe not a lot in the context of the interview, but a lot more than we've really heard him talk about Fallout 76 in the past. And he said a lot of things that are really interesting, a lot of things that a lot of other YouTubers have already started to point out. This was a very strange interview in a lot of ways. It wasn't really what I expected to hear from him, and I don't think it was what a lot of other people expected to hear from him, mostly because a lot of the things he was saying seemed to fly in the face of kind of an understanding of their own business, and kind of more importantly, an understanding of gaming as a whole. He places a lot of the onus on gamers. He does a lot of blaming in a way, even though throughout the interview, he does a lot of framing of that blame. He makes it sound like, we accept responsibility, but really we did this because of you. Really this happened because of you guys. Really the gamers are the reason that this, and this happened, instead of saying, we like money. So today I want to do something that we don't normally do, something that I haven't done in the past, which is kind of go clip by clip into things that I think are more interesting instead of just pointing them out in text form, which I normally do, and kind of talk about these things, provide more context, and provide my perspective. And really, most importantly, kind of call out what I think are blatant and obvious marketing points. And it starts with this.
We knew that there was risk with that,
Oh,
right?
sure,
Like
yeah.
we weren't just doing the safe and narrow, like let's just churn out single player Fallout Elder Scrolls games every year or every other year, or do these things, right? We tried something that was a pretty big change of direction for that studio, and just because it didn't go well doesn't mean you shouldn't do that. It just means you need to learn the lessons from when you did it, what didn't work well, so that the next time you try something really different, hopefully you avoid some of those problems and issues.
I found this sentence borderline ridiculous. What Pete is saying here in this little section of the interview is that they needed to try something new. They felt a little stagnant. They wanted to take a risk, and Fallout 76 was a risk for them. Now, it's worth pointing out Bethesda said time and time again that the reason, including in this interview by the way, that Fallout 76 exists is because this was the way that the industry was headed, and these multiplayer shared experiences are everywhere. But now he's saying that Fallout 76 was actually them taking a risk. It wasn't following the trends of the industry, which they've stated before is the reason they did this. It wasn't making sure that they were up with multiplayer gaming. No. Now, this was the risky endeavor, and that it would have been safe to churn out a Fallout and Skyrim every year. Now, I would love to hear from you guys. Maybe when's the last time Fallout or Skyrim were annualized releases? Last time I checked, it took them years to get out a Fallout or Skyrim game. There were large gaps in between these releases. Huge gaps, in fact. So many gaps that if you look at these two releases, we haven't even seen an Elder Scrolls release on this gen, and we probably won't, since this gen will kind of be left behind in a few months. But he wants to make the point that they were getting stagnant, they were just churning out Fallout and Skyrim games, and that the risk was not fixing their current games, making their games better. No, the risk was following every single trend that's been identified by anybody with a brain and pushing that microtransaction, live service, shared experience garbage out the door in a way that does it worse than everybody doing it well. Because remember guys, Fallout 76 wasn't a money grab, it was them trying to make sure they don't churn out Skyrim and Fallout every year. But then he go on to kind of defend Fallout First a bit, which I thought was a bit strange, and that's here.
Well, let's be clear. I mean, like anything, it was created for folks, for some percentage of our existing player base that we thought wanted that.
Yeah.
And you usually tend not to do these things in terms of raw numbers. You're usually looking at a percentage, right?
Yeah.
What percentage of our monthly active users do we think will be interested? Well, it's probably around here. We were above that number for the first month, and it's gone up every subsequent month since we put it out. All of the criticism and anger and so forth notwithstanding. I guess what doesn't really resonate with me much is like, well, how come you want X? Like it's $100 and like I could get, Hulu only cost me this. But I'm not asking you whether or not you want to subscribe to Hulu or you want to do this. I'm asking people who are playing a lot of Fallout 76 whether this is of value or not. And by the way, the $100, the reason they would want to do that is they say, I play so much Fallout 76. Yes, I would like to save 40 or 50 bucks over what I would spend across the course of a year, because instead of paying whatever it is a month, I'm in for $100 and I'm saving money. I want to do that.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, why does anybody buy a car that's more expensive than the least expensive car out there? Like, well, because they're looking for something else, because they have different criteria in terms of what they're looking for.
I find it very weird that Bethesda has kind of doubled down on Fallout First. They want to sit here and say they know they've made mistakes and they know that they've done things wrong and they're trying to fix things and rectify things, and they hear that gamers hated the game and they didn't like the game, but then they want to defend pushing out a subscription service for that game before it's fixed, before they provide the things that they keep promising for the game. I find that a little weird. It gets total contradiction. It's entirely hypocritical for them to come out and be like, look, we've heard you. The game is not what you want it to be. The game is not what we want it to be. And we're building Wastelanders to fix those problems, to fix the things you want us to fix. But also, before we do any of that, please give us more money. Please pay us for the things that you're complaining about in the first place. Please pay us for things that we should have given you for free to begin with. That's what's so weird about this doubling down, especially from someone like Pete Hines. You're sitting here saying you understand what people wanted and you understand where you went wrong. But instead of giving those things to people now that you've messed up, you're standing by charging them a subscription fee for them. It's just kind of weird. It feels, I don't know, for lack of a better term, icky. It's almost the most markety, weirdly prideful businessman monopoly guy move I've heard from Bethesda in a long time, especially because this was such a blatant error in judgment. But want to talk about doubling down? What about gamers and what they want?
I mean, the main reason was that the studio felt like multiplayer and a shared experience was something that was brought up the most by folks who play Elder Scrolls games and Fallout games that they made, and they wanted to expand a little bit and try something different, not to the exclusion of ever making the kind of games that they're known for, right?
So this portion of the interview was a little bit weird for me, right? I understand to a certain extent what Bethesda and Pete is saying here, and they've said it before. And it's that, yes, gamers have said over and over and over again that Fallout with my buddy would be cool. What if my friend could join my Fallout world and they could do these things? And that's not wrong, right? We've all heard it, being in the gaming community, being a YouTuber, whoever you are. Not only have you probably said it, but you've definitely seen it written on a forum somewhere or a blog. And that makes sense, right? But what bothers me is that that sentiment was not nearly as overwhelming as Pete and Bethesda likes to pretend it was. There weren't giant petitions to make Fallout multiplayer games. Instead, I think this is a lot of misdirection. Bethesda wants us to believe that Fallout 76 exists because everybody asked for it. But the reality is that that's not the overwhelming sentiment of what people wanted from Bethesda. Let's talk about the overwhelming sentiment for what people wanted. Gamers wanted a new engine. They've been begging to move away from Game Bureau, which became Creation Engine, for so long. They have asked for that year after year after year as Bethesda re-releases Skyrim with the same problems and the same bugs year after year after year. They've asked for complete products at launch that don't need to be modded to be fixed or completed. They want less bugs. They want better fixes. Let's not forget that back in the Skyrim day, this problem isn't new. Skyrim barely worked on the PS3 for months and months and months after launch. It was so bad for so long that it almost became a running joke. That's what gamers wanted. Gamers wanted a Fallout that works, that doesn't need to be modded to be enjoyed the way it's supposed to be enjoyed. One where they don't lose their game saves. One where they don't have glitches constantly. One where there's not manatees falling out of the sky in Skyrim. That's what gamers wanted. New engine, an evolution of these games, because they haven't really evolved at all. They picked up this IP, released Fallout 3, and have made just tiny incremental adaptations, I'd call them, as they went on. There's no real evolution, no revolution, no overhaul, nothing. Yes, gamers wanted multiplayer Fallout, but they really wanted better Fallout, fixed Fallout. They didn't necessarily need to play with their friends. That's secondary to, I think, what most people's problems with Fallout was. Most people's problems with these games were not, hey, I can't play with my friends. But the thing that got the biggest laugh out of me, and it's the thing I've seen a ton of other great YouTubers talk about because it's hilarious, that is this moment where he talks about Guerrilla Games.
They announced Starfield when we talked about others, because we wanted folks to understand, look, we're going to make another single-player epic role-playing game. We're not done with that. We just wanted to try something that was more shared and online to see what that was like, so that we have that experience, so that if down the road we ever want to try it again, like, well, we have some some experience with this kind of thing. Otherwise, you do get pigeonholed into like, I'm only ever making this kind of game. I mean, I think I've mentioned this to you before, but you don't get Horizon Zero Dawn if that team sticks to what they were known for and had always made. They pivoted and tried something that I think is substantially different than what they had made before, and it's one of my favorite games of the last 5 years. And so I mean, you're hoping that when you try something risky and different that you end up with Horizon Zero Dawn and not with a lot of bumps and issues, but that doesn't mean you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Now look, the comparison to Horizon Zero Dawn, Guerrilla, and Killzone is so flawed for a lot of reasons. Yes, as other people have pointed out, the difference between Horizon Zero Dawn is they actually went and made a fully fleshed out product that took years of precise development and passion, and they made something that feels just beautiful from beginning to end, feels complete. It feels like people really, really cared, but that's not what I think is most interesting to me about this. That's really obvious. What I think is interesting is that this is the first time in this interview, just kind of a body language situation here, that I think Pete really believes what he's saying. And maybe it's because he said it so much internally that he started to believe his own nonsense, but he can't possibly believe that the steps Guerrilla took transitioning from Killzone to Horizon Zero Dawn are similar to what Bethesda did with Fallout 4 and Fallout 3 to Fallout 76. Guerrilla made an excellent game series in Killzone. Excellent. But gamers kind of moved away from that first-person shooter FPS genre that really didn't have a lot to offer in terms of multiplayer across platforms, right? That exclusive multiplayer experience hasn't really thrived in this current space, outside of maybe Splatoon on the Switch and Smash Brothers, but that's not the point. I digress. The point is that Guerrilla identified an actual problem with their current structure, with their current platforms, with what they were creating, and that problem being that maybe they've been on Killzone a bit too long, one game franchise, and that maybe they should take what they've learned from creating Killzone, specifically Shadowfall, opening that game up a bit, and create something new with the things they learned in the process, not abandoning their model. Horizon Zero Dawn is, like Killzone, still a single-player first game. It is a game that builds a beautiful world and great lore and a great story. It maintains the identity of Guerrilla. It maintains that identity and creates something new out of it. Fallout 4 or Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas, which wasn't even developed by them, or Skyrim to Fallout 76 is the polar opposite of that structure and reality. Fallout 4 is a single player only open world RPG with a focus on immersive storytelling and decision making. On top of that, it deals a lot with dialogue trees, RPG perks, all of those things that you get. It is meant to be an RPG even in the places it fails. Fallout 76 is essentially none of that. There is no immersive storytelling. There's barely a story there at all. You have no choices to make that are of any meaningful nature. You have absolutely no decisions that affect the outcome of what you're doing in a way that's actually substantive. You have basically taken the identity of Bethesda Game Studios, the identity of Fallout and Skyrim, and stripped that down. Not learned from it and evolved it, stripped it down entirely, taking the polar opposite approach of what Guerrilla did and released a game. Don't ever compare Fallout 76 to something as great as Horizon Zero Dawn. And you should never compare your studios and publishing regressions to an evolution in progress from someone else doing it much better. But there was one nugget of positivity, I think, that came out of this interview, and that's this here.
I would definitely say that the team is already taking into consideration the feedback that they've gotten over the last, whatever it is, 14, 15 months since launch, that it is going to look, that they have a pretty good idea. We're going to be talking a lot about it in the next week or two and laying out some roadmap stuff, but it will be even more of the kind of stuff that we think people want.
Okay.
Factions, stories, NPCs, cool choices. Hey, I put a lot of time and effort into building up this special, and now my, the level of that special gives me a cool dialogue option talking to this person that allows me to do this other outcome that I couldn't have gotten otherwise.
Yes, we all know Wastelanders is coming, and a lot of people who have seen what Wastelanders offers, a lot of people who have seen it behind the scenes, say good things about it. They think that this might be a really great thing for the game, and I actually just discussed it a couple days ago. This has kind of been a Fallout-y week for me because I've been away and I missed a lot of news, and so I just talked about this. Pete says here that, Wastelanders is them listening. They hear us, they hear the gamer, they hear the community, the people that actually sit there and play this game every day, so the people that love it. And by the way, shout out to those people for sticking with this. I hope genuinely that you're rewarded with a better game down the line, because you guys deserve it. You guys have sunk a lot of money and time into this, and it would be a shame to see you guys not rewarded for that, But I just find it a bit odd that Pete sits here and says things like, we hear you, and Wastelanders is the result of that, when primarily the biggest issue with the game from the gate was that it didn't work properly, and it still really doesn't. There are a lot of problems, but with that being said, it's nice to hear Pete outwardly talking openly about Wastelanders. It's nice to hear him sound like this is something they're really committed to and they're really happy with and they really like, and it's nice to hear them talk about it like something that we, the gamer, the person that bought Fallout 76, should also be excited for. Now, will it be great? I don't know. Will it fix the problems of the game? Probably not. Will it actually help? I would assume at least a little, but it's nice to hear them outwardly talking about this. I mean, this whole interview was a series of track covering, right? It wasn't him coming out here and being totally honest. That would be, I guess, too much to expect from a company like Bethesda at this point, but it's kind of strange to hear just how ridiculous Bethesda is when it comes to this marketing talk. Now, the marketing speak, to making sure they don't say anything, to making sure they find comparisons that make sense for them. It's just weird, but now I want to know what you guys think. What do you think of this interview? What do you think of what Bethesda's saying? Are you excited for Wastelanders at all? And my, I think, most pertinent question, which I should have asked last time, but I'm asking now, are you still excited for Elder Scrolls 6 or Starfield? Are those games you'll pick up day one, or are those things you're going to wait on? Let me know the answers to any of those questions down in the comments below. Let's have a real conversation. As always, if you did enjoy this video and want more game analysis or news, kind of like I do here, that would be the subscribe button down below. That'll make sure you don't miss anything. So press the subscribe button. Also hit the little bell next to it to make sure you're actually notified when videos go up, which actually really helps me and the platform to getting my videos to you. So hit the bell and the subscribe button. And as always, 2 more videos right here in front of you right now. Recent news, whatever it is, right there for you. More series will be coming as games come out. I'm excited for Doom. I'm really excited for Animal Crossing. I'm going to kind of break into a little bit of Nintendo content, maybe not a lot, but just a little, because I am kind of excited about that game, surprisingly. But you will see a lot more variety in the content coming up here. And until next time, guys, I'm out.